Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of this week. And folks, buckle up. Last week only had a couple things going on. This week feels like everything is happening. There's such an intense energy around this week. There is pretty much multiple astrological events every single day. And obviously, when we have lighter weeks, astrology is still happening. We're just not getting these kind of like pressure points that get hit. And this week is the week where all of the pressure points get hit. So we're just one after the other. We are going to be experiencing some pretty, honestly, major astrology. This video is probably going to be a little longer. Just be aware. This is why. Also, there's a new moon this week. I will be posting a separate video for that. But I will touch on it lightly here. But let's get started because we got a lot to go through. Starting on Monday, kicking the week off strong, we have Sun trine Jupiter retrograde. So Jupiter is now officially retrograde in Cancer. It is interesting because it is retrograde right before we go into a Jupiter ruled season. So Sagittarius season, just a little hint, is going to be a little different than maybe a full Jupiter direct Sagittarius season. Lots of lessons, lots of nodal squares. But we have this Sun trine Jupiter. It is a moment to really sit with this Jupiter cycle because remember Jupiter, was it June? Yeah, Jupiter shifted into Cancer in June. And so now we're kind of at this point where we've hit the retrograde and we have to kind of sit with all of the decisions and the changes and also the misconceptions we might have had about what the cycle might have been, or the beliefs that have changed, or the ideals that have shifted, because that's Jupiter rules belief and wisdom and ideas. Mercury is more the practical application. And so we're going to sit with that. It is also a moment to recognize what goodness and abundance means to you. A lot of times when we manifest or we desire something, we kind of just throw out these kind of loose terms like I want abundance, I want plenty. But what are those things to you? And how can you express them clearly to the universe? And how can you be honest and true to yourself by recognizing what is true to you? You know, for the longest time, I thought having visibility and acclaim and a job as a performer was what was good for me and what I wanted. And as I got to know myself better and as my ideals changed and as my belief systems shifted, it wasn't actually what I wanted, and it wouldn't have been good for me if I had gotten it. I would not have enjoyed that life. And so this moment is kind of that, where it's like, who am I now? What do I want? What do I need? How can I meet those desires? And my encouragement for this Mercury retrograde for a lot of us, because it is kind of in the underbelly in Scorpio, is really being honest about what you want and coming to terms with any shame or guilt you have around desiring good things for yourself. You should deserve and get good things. There's no world in which you don't. And anyone who's telling you differently doesn't have your back. And so this is a moment to embrace goodness, to believe in oneself. This is also a moment where we might kind of shimmy between like overconfidence and underconfidence, like an extreme level of being like, wow, I've really got this, and being like, oh, I'm never going to succeed. And both of those are valid. But I think it's really about kind of honing in, especially with the sun involved, honing in on what our vitality deserves, on what we require as a human soul, instead of just, you know, kind of going with maybe what we were raised with or what we believed in when we were younger. This is a time to reconsider. And Jupiter in Cancer has been a really great time to really think about our beliefs and our core systems and how they either help us or help the collective or don't. So this is a good time to check in and to kind of let that flow. This is also a great day to take care of others, to do Jupiterian acts. Jupiter also rules immigrants, so any advocacy you can do for immigration rights, anti-ICE things, all of that is important and something that I think should be focused on. Also on this day, we have Mercury sextile Pluto. So while we are being asked these questions about belief and desire and abundance, it's actually kind of propitious because we have Mercury in a nice little chat with Pluto about what, and retrograde, about what we deserve and what desire means for us and how we can best meet ourselves mentally in the spaces that are darker and in areas that may feel a little more spooky and scary. And instead of like being terrified or overwhelmed in a sextile, there's an ability to digest, an ability to sit with and to really accept things for as they are without being overwhelmed with what that might mean if we fully accepted that and had to grieve it or celebrate it or whatever. So, a really nice moment to just be honest and generous with oneself, and also to like tap into raw and bridled emotion around our expression and pain. If you're an artist, this is a really good day to touch down because slightly later we get Sun trine Saturn as well. So we have this grand trine that will never go into an exact exaction, but about as close as you're going to get. And it's going to be a moment of tons of insight and understanding. Also, look out for kind of big global shifts happening because we have this retrograde Jupiter and this retrograde Saturn in conversation in a water trine to the sun. So, a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily like physical. So, psychic things, movements, the invisible systems, those are the things that are coming to the forefront. And we're like, clarity. I see where this is going. It's also a great day for revelations because we have that Mercury retrograde talking to Pluto, and then we have this massive psychic trine. It feels as though people who are really connected to themselves and their desires and dreams and their understandings of the restrictions that we currently live under and how to change it, people who are tapped in like that will have a lot of power in this moment. And so I encourage you to tap in so that you also harness this power as well to understand what is required for us to live in a way that is authentic and true to ourselves, and how to shift society and the world into a place where that is more true. Let me just check. I'm doing some back to backs here. I want to check my microphone's still working because it's Mercury retrograde, and that's also something that would happen. I was partially way through a video and my background fell apart. It was great. Anyways, so the Sun trine Saturn, we are being faced with the way things are not working, the way production isn't happening. I do think with the water trine specifically, we're also being faced with not the physical side necessarily of overconsumption, but the emotional ramifications of putting all of your value into being an earner, or all of your value into what you own, or all of your coping mechanisms being into what you can purchase. Very much kind of highlighting, oh no, my eggs are all in one very shady basket. And so now is the time to then redistribute said eggs into other baskets, into friendships and hobbies and experiences, and into a goal for me this coming year is to work on detangling myself from larger corporations and finding ways to shop more locally and to do things more simply. I am moving. I'm going to try to get, I'm not going to be able to get all of my stuff secondhand, but I'm going to try to get what I can secondhand. Dishes and utensils and little household things that you could just go buy from a place like Amazon or another mass production store, but I could just go find a really decent used version somewhere else. Yeah, it's a really big day and a really big week for this kind of understanding and really connecting to what is important and what is happening and the things that we value that we get to take forward with us. And I think this is, while we're going to have the Kazemi, of course, at some point, you know, this is also a moment of clarity with this grand trine, but it is more of kind of an undercurrent of the things you've been working on rather than something fresh smacking you between the eyes. Then on the 18th, which is Tuesday, we have Mercury re-entering Scorpio. But before it does that, it goes into a trine with Neptune and an opposition with Uranus at 29 degrees. And so there is this push and pull between the god of innovation and change and time of its own, because Uranus was its own time god. There's Chronos, which is literal time, but Uranus was kind of the essence, the creation of shifts and changes within a construct. Um, and then a trine with, our, uh, beautiful Neptunian moment where speech is not the most essential thing, where art and song and lyric and interpretation becomes fluid. And with the opposition to Uranus, we get to kind of see where we want to go, and how looking back, while it can feel restrictive and it can feel like we're not going anywhere, looking back is going to show us how to move forward. And it can be hard because we look back and we see what progress we haven't made. But in this moment where dreams will be so fluid and where we are forced to face progress or the lack thereof, there is a moment of deep creativity and deep beauty and understanding around what could be and what we are no longer going to accept as a person, as society, as a culture, as whatever the current predominant zeitgeist is. Like, we can change that. We can decide to do things differently. We can dream of a better world and we can make it. And I think if you aren't hopeful, this day can be really hard, because it's like, we can also imagine what isn't going to change. And we can imagine the sadness and desperation of a world that is trapped in the imagination of rich white, which is a horror show. But we don't have to believe that, and we don't have to sit with that option, and we can start to reimagine things through the lens of indigeneity, and by listening to the voices of the people who belong to the lands that we live on, and to start to platform them and support them, and to advocate for, land return and indigenous sovereignty. And this is a really good day to be like, how can I take a really small mercurial moment and change the future? And it will develop over time because we are headed backwards. We are headed back into Scorpio. But this is kind of pulling into something both magical and practical, and being like, you know what? Because you're on Taurus. When this comes back around, let's have a plan. Let's have some desires. And maybe you want to do something like a New Year's resolution, but maybe it's just a commitment to yourself to engage with things in a more intentional and deep way. Something that I've fallen out of because life has been intense and I'm still in the midst of it, is like, meditation or sitting alone with my guides and stuff like that. So this is a great day to kind of tap back into your ancestors and be like, hey guys, sorry I've been gone for a minute. And really reconnect to what your plans and your like passions and desires are moving forward with your spiritual life. Then moving on to Wednesday, we have Venus trine North Node, which also means it's sextile the South Node. This is a day to, for me, a lot of North Node moments are the promise and the projection of possibility. It is what can be and where we can go and what we can do, but hasn't quite gotten there yet. This can be, especially with the Venus trine, this can be you envisaging maybe a partner that you wish to engage with, or maybe the community that you desire and don't have right now. It's also a time to deconstruct things because we have that sextile with the South Node, to be like, the ways that I engage with a relationship, how do they affect me and my community, and how do I want to either continue what I am doing or shift moving forward to get what I deserve. To me, the North Node is, because it's not a body, it's it's a point in the sky. It is a place where possibility and magic exists, and it's less about like hitting this point and having like a moment of some kind of attainment, but it is hitting this point and going, oh, I know my path forward. I know where I want to go. It's also a very past life point. So it is this moment where your soul becomes connected to its life path and its life goal, and can recommit and can re-believe in its ability to change the future for its projection going forward. So it's a really beautiful day. And then on the 11th, we have some fun stuff. So we had that new moon in Scorpio. Something really special about this new moon at 28 degrees is that we will have the Mercury cazimi. And that's going to be a really beautiful moment. And it's going to, because we're going to have a trine with, you know, looser now, but we'll be hitting that trine again, you know, and we will have had the Mercury trines and the Sun trines and, all of these things. We are going to really get to kind of tie Monday down to our Thursday. And so we have the new moon in Scorpio that's going to happen at 6:46 a.m. EST. And then we're going to move into that full Mercury cazimi at 9:22 a.m. So within the orb of this new Scorpio moon, we get this beautiful moment of insight, and often the full turning point of a retrograde is the cazimi, where everything is a mess and it will remain a mess. But we finally are like, oh, this is the vibe and this is how I can work on it. So look for magical insights, understandings, clarity. Know that it is a window of time. So you're not going to get everything and it's not going to stick, but it is a day to mark down. It's a day to really engage in. With the amplification of a new moon in Scorpio, we also have a trine with Neptune, a trine with Jupiter, a trine with Saturn. This is a really big moment for change and shifting. This is also a moment to go against the grain. We are in Scorpio. We are trying all of these major planets that are about to shift into different signs in the next few months. Jupiter will wait till the summer when it'll go into Leo. I think it's the summer, so either the summer or early fall. But all of these big shifts and moments when things are all changing and moving, and things are never going to be the same. And that is the vibe of this moon. It also is a vibe of raw honesty and sheer grit and determination. And it's ruled by Mars, which is very spicy right now in Sagittarius. And so there is this hunger and this drive for change. I will say on this day, we might be like, now is the time to change everything. Remember, it's a window of time. We will still kind of be back in that, kind of restrictive, resistant energy for a bit. But this is where we kind of get that boost to go forward, that boost to push ahead, to be like, yes, I believe in what I believe in, and I will stand on that, and I will fight for that regardless. And I have the powers that be to support and to push me ahead and to encourage me. And it's a great time to harness for the progression, especially towards the end of this year. So I encourage you to do some ritual and some magic on that day. Maybe don't do something that is like a really huge long-term spell, but something that is about getting something done now in this moment, something to push things ahead that you need, that maybe the Mercury retrograde's been getting in the way of. Knowing that maybe it won't come to fully fruition until Mercury stations direct, but you are using this moment of blinding sun and a connection to these big planets to really dig your feet in and commit to something magical. Then moving on to the 21st, our sun has the same moment that our bestie Mercury had, just in a forward position, where we hit that opposition to Uranus and we hit that trine with Neptune. Now, this is a day of both dream and desire and delusion, and also kind of having to stare at the hard facts. It also might feel, especially after kind of the uplift of the new moon, it might feel like a bit of a letdown where we go, oh, we're back in Taurus with Uranus. We're back recognizing how we have brutalized the planet, and some of us are going to want to detach completely. And here's the deal: in difficult times, it is not bad to detach and be a bit delusional to try to save yourself some energy and try to cope. I'm never against you. You cannot be locked in 24/7. you will burn out. But recognize that this is a day, and that there's some beautiful things in it. And if you can, you know, maybe rest intermittently, but if you can harness optimism and hope in a moment where maybe the bad things are a little larger than life. Because a trine with Neptune, while beautiful and flowing and wonderful for art and magic, it can also really amplify the energies that are currently happening. And a lot of the energies, especially on a global scale, are violent and cruel. So this is a day to really focus on your community and, as Mr. Rogers says, the helpers, and use them as a way to project into your dreams. This is also a great time to say to the powers at large, um, to kind of going back to the earlier themes of this week, to cut back on consumption, to commit to a boycott, to really ask yourself, what do I need to be happy? And in this moment of flow between Neptune, really believe what your soul is telling you and really focus on that. If you need more friends, commit to finding more friends. And believe me, I know it's hard. I struggle as an autistic person, but I have been able to find them when I put my little thinking cap on. And I'm not saying it's easy for everyone. And oftentimes I get met with rejection and people who think I'm a little odd, if not more than a little. But you can manifest community and friendship. And I will say this in this week, if you are manifesting those things and there is something, some situation or job or someone who is getting in the way of those manifestations, this week will really shake that loose if you're not already on that journey. And if you continue to hold on to that kind of one thing that is kind of keeping you from your larger desires, even if it's a beautiful thing, it might just have outrun its time. This week is going to shake it loose. And if this week doesn't shake it loose, we have a bunch of planetary squares with the nodes coming up in Sagittarius season and into Capricorn season. So my advice is to take your little fingies off and to be like, you know what, I really love this thing, but if it is not a part of my higher good, I release it. Very much the vibe of Friday. Then on Saturday, we have the sun entering Sagittarius. We are officially into Sagittarius season. And on that very same day, Mercury retrograde has a trine with Saturn. And this is, you know, a really beautiful moment. And it's also the next time we have this trine, Saturn will be direct. So this is our second to third trine going on. It's really important to kind of remember where we are. So this week is very much middle of the journey. We are having our middle of the journey aspects. This is the second pass that we're having with everyone. And so, you know, this isn't the first time we've had this trine. You know, this is about really feeding into and powering up our desire for stability and listening to needs and kind of what I call retrograde planning, where you make lists and stuff that they may or may not ever get completed, but you have put them somewhere. There is an intention down. And when you come back through, you can rewrite that list again with more information. But this is a time to really, I think a lot of us are in really unstable situations, speaking from experience and from my clients who are around. And this is a time to be like, this is what I believe stability is. And some of us might want stability, but it might not be the stability that we think it is. And so I encourage you to really investigate during this Saturn trine, what is security to you? Very much going back to that Jupiter trine that the sun had earlier, and we're going to have that trine with Saturn with our little bestie. Words. On Sunday, we're going to have that same trine just with Mercury. This whole kind of Saturn Jupiter moment is about like, what do these things mean to me outside of my indoctrination or upbringing or conditioning? How can I be unpacking these kind of colonial beliefs and the internalized trauma of my family system? And no, you don't have to face this all at once, but a lot of it's going to come up, you know. And also conversely, like, what are the good things about how I was raised? Personal example, because that's how I can connect with people. You know, is my family is a mess. I'm no contact with most of them, but something that we did really well was hospitality. Now, maybe if you stayed for 3 days, you would hate us after that because so dysfunctional, but we truly cared and tried to make people feel at home in our own little funky way, um, in the midst of traumatizing each other. And so, something that I really value that I carry from my family is this idea of hospitality and care. And when I engage with people who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire, um, my roots coming out, I don't like it. I don't like people who aren't hospitable. I don't like people who are like not related, don't care. And so this Mercury trine Saturn is a great day to like investigate what parts did you enjoy about some things you were raised and what parts need to be deconstructed. And we will continue to deconstruct as we move through this retrograde. This retrograde is tearing down walls. Um, but and these are just examples. This is going to show up in a myriad of different ways for a myriad of different people. But recognizing the things that you want to keep, the things that need to go. Also recognizing that some stuff that you might want to keep might be tied to racism and classism, and you need to investigate why you're still hanging on to those things. And I mean, I can tell you why. It's because there's safety and protection and privilege, but it's time to peel the little fingers off and to release yourself so that we can find a better world together. Then on Sunday, we have the sun sextile Pluto, which is another echo because we're kind of playing this little dance with the sun and Mercury this week where they cross each other's paths. So the sun is kind of where Mercury was earlier this week at the end of the week. This ability to be really raw and honest in a non-triggering way, to be really open to what is happening and to allow yourself to be wrong. It's really hard sometimes to admit when you're wrong, but I think this week especially is going to kind of show us where maybe we're not correct. Maybe we do need a shift in desire and in value. Me, Mercury retrograded, checking my mic again because these tech things always go amiss for me. So be honest with yourself, be honest with others. The sextile is a beautiful opportunity to kind of put a little connecting line through this week and really understand and consider what you've been learning and understanding, and also let this moment be a sieve. We cannot, there's so much energy, you cannot process and understand everything. So just let the energy flow through you, and what sticks in our little sieve will stick. And we'll just pick up the stuff that falls this time around on our way back. Because this week is going, looking at my notes, which do not always look like this, is going to be a lot. And we're going to have to digest a lot. We're going to be dealing with a lot. And the energy is going to be exhausting. So allow stuff to fall through that is not germane to the current moment, and we will come get it later, in the next 2 weeks, honestly. And then we have that Mercury trine with Jupiter, where now that we've kind of sat early in the week with the ethos of self and the kernels of our desires, now is the time to mentally process, to verbalize, to bounce off other people, to really ask ourselves, and this is not the practical doing. We're in a Mercury retrograde. There's a lot of practical doing, but asking ourselves, how would I attain that going forward? And what way works best for me? And, maybe it is a change of approach. Maybe it's just recognizing that you have a different approach. I am not, to be honest, I'm not really built for social media and places. I do really well one-on-one with people. It's probably the autism. It's just my unique chart. I love and appreciate every single person who does show up and watches my stuff because the little handful that you are really like brings me a lot of joy. But yeah, it's a moment to be like, how, for my unique sense of self and the unique world that I live in and these oppressive systems, how do I access and harness abundance? And how do I also, because we do not live in isolation, how do I help others do that too? And how can I be supportive? And how can I be the person who comes into someone's, maybe their comment section or watches their video to make their day and to give them hope and encouragement? And if it's not a comment section, how can you do that in the day-to-day life? How can you show up for your friends and communities? And also, in what ways do you deserve to be showed up for? Because it's always a two-way street. Um, anyways, that's that. It's a lot. Look out for the new moon in Scorpio video. It will be coming. I will also be posting a Sagittarius season overview, just kind of giving us the rundown on what we've got going on with all this Sagittarius, Jupiter retrograde, middle square, Mercury retrograde. Bright side, Jupiter, not Jupiter, Saturn is stationing direct soon. And Venus will be going into the very fun sign of Sagittarius. But that's a sneak peek. Anyways, my loves, please like and subscribe, comment if you have any questions. I love you all, and take care of yourself this week. Rest as much as you can. This energy is the type that just kind of infiltrates and overwhelms. So take what you need to, leave what you can't. We will get it later.